Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating character study of modern romance. We are looking at a story titled Whispers in the Neon Rain. Now, if you love narratives that strip away all that fairy tale fluff and look at what actually happens when real, highly driven, flawed people try to forge a connection in today's hyper-fast world, well, you are going to absolutely love this. We're going to trace the anatomy of a deeply complicated relationship, looking at how two people navigate intense ambition, deep-seated trauma, and honestly just the sheer noise of the modern world to find something genuine. To really understand the raw emotional stakes of this story right out of the gate, listen to this confession from our male protagonist, Marcus Hale. He says, "I love you, even when I'm fucking it up, especially then." I mean, wow, right? This is clearly not a story about perfect love. It's about a messy, agonizing, deeply human kind of love. That quote is a confession of failure and a declaration of devotion, all wrapped into one. It gives us this incredible window into the mind of someone fighting their own demons, just desperately trying to hold on to something good.
And really, that brings us to the core thematic question of our explainer today. What happens when an unstoppable ambition meets an immovable trauma? Think about that for a second. We live in a culture that totally glorifies the grind, right? The hustle, the relentless climb to the top. But we also live in a world where people carry profound invisible scars. When these two massive forces collide, the relentless push toward the future and the haunting pull of the past, what actually survives? Well, let's find out.
Act 1. The Neon Collision. Because every great romance needs an inciting incident. This one takes place on a slick, rain-soaked street in New York City in October. It's chaotic. A motorcycle swerves to avoid a puddle, totally takes out a pedestrian, smashes a laptop, and ultimately results in a fateful cup of diner coffee. The contrast between our two characters here is stark. It kind of proves that a literal traffic collision is sometimes way more effective than a dating app. On one hand, we have Elena Voss. She's a 28-year-old VP at a tech firm called Apex Dynamics. She is entirely IPO-focused, constantly fielding emails from Tokyo and San Francisco. She represents the future. She's relentless, sterile, and very walled off. Then we have the motorcyclist, Marcus Hale. He's an ex-Army war photographer originally from Montana. He is haunted by PTSD from a brutal ambush in Afghanistan, heavily scarred and inextricably bound to his past. The friction here is immediate. You literally have the corporate boardroom crashing into the chaotic war zone. But despite their entirely different worlds, they actually find this profound common ground. They start this slow-burn romance, bonding over the intense pressures of Elena's life. You know, things like the death of her father and her exhausting need to be perfect, and Marcus's horrific night terrors. And they reach this moment of intense vulnerability. Marcus warns her that he is broken. And Elena, she doesn't even flinch. She simply replies, "I'm broken too. Maybe we fit." It brilliantly illustrates how their mutual brokenness serves as the very foundation of their initial attraction. It's almost a form of trauma bonding. They aren't trying to hide their flaws. They're just hoping their jagged edges might actually lock together.
Which leads us to Act 2, cracks in the foundation.
Because, as you might guess, a foundation built purely on shared brokenness is incredibly fragile. The honeymoon phase inevitably ends. Their first major fracture happens in this rapid cascade. Step 1, external pressure skyrockets. Elena is pulling these grueling 18-hour marathons for an IPO, while Marcus's war photography is suddenly being courted by National Geographic. And this massive success actually triggers step 2, Marcus's internal isolation. Highly successful people often use their ambition to mask unresolved grief. For Marcus, the rising stakes send him withdrawing into dark rooms, whiskey, and the ghosts of his fallen squad, just to cope. Ultimately, it leads to flight. Elena accuses him of self-destructing. He accuses her of having a savior complex. And while she's away on a trip to Singapore, Marcus leaves a heartbreaking note under her door. It just says, "I need to get better before I ruin you." And just like that, he vanishes. So what happens when they separate? Well, over the next 6 months, they both achieve massive objective success. Elena lands on the cover of Forbes 30 Under 30 and upgrades to a gorgeous penthouse. Marcus goes completely off-grid to Ukraine and wins major photography awards. Yet, paradoxically, they are both emotionally hollowed out. Elena realizes just how empty her victories are when her mother suffers a stroke, and Marcus is left with deepening scars on his soul, barely even noticing his own accolades. It's this profound reminder that external success without deep, grounding connection just leaves us completely adrift. Moving on to Act 3, the second chance. Fast forward a bit, and our narrative shifts to a highly charged, super unexpected reunion. Exactly 1 year after their first meeting, they literally crash back into each other at the glittering Met Gala. Elena is in this stunning emerald gown. Marcus is working the event in a borrowed tuxedo. But crucially, Marcus has grown. He reveals he's quit drinking and is in real therapy. For the next half year, they enjoy a beautifully restored honeymoon phase. He even moves in with her. But just 6 months into this renewed bliss, around the 1.6-year mark, a new dual crisis strikes. Elena's company faces a massive data breach, and right at the same time, a veteran friend of Marcus reaches out, desperately needing money.
Elena, being the problem solver VP that she is, immediately steps in and offers to fix the friend's problem financially. But she miscalculates, badly. It sparks a brutal fight. Marcus just snaps and tells her love shouldn't feel like charity. This clash, his fierce, wounded pride hitting right up against her innate savior complex, shatters their rebuilt trust all over again in a rapid flurry of accusations.
Which brings us to a really difficult question. Is love enough when external crises strike? I mean, when stock prices plummet, when old addictions flare up in friends, when the real world violently intrudes on that safe romantic bubble, is the raw emotion of love sufficient to keep two people together? Or do you need something more? As we're about to see, the answer the story gives us is a painfully honest one.
Act 4, Shattered Glass. If you're a fan of story structure, this is the classic all is lost moment.
This is the absolute rock bottom for our characters. The fallout from their fight is devastating. Marcus, feeling completely suffocated, abruptly packs up for a short-term assignment in Syria. He claims he just needs space. Meanwhile, Elena goes to his apartment to share some life-altering news. She is pregnant. But when she walks in and sees him packing his bags to flee yet again, her pride totally takes over. She stays completely silent, let him go. A week later, tragedy strikes. Elena miscarries, alone in her bathroom. The sheer weight of this grief is so heavy that she resigns from Apex Dynamics altogether. And Marcus, he is completely unaware of any of it. 3 whole months pass before Marcus even finds out. He hears the news secondhand while quite literally dodging bullets in a war zone. So when he finally returns to confront the wreckage of what he left behind, the contrast between them is entirely different than when they first met. Marcus is hollowed out, utterly consumed by an immense, crushing guilt. Elena, on the other hand, has forged this untouchable armor. She's thinner, sharper, and she's already running a new consulting firm. Here we see that classic defense mechanism again, using raw ambition to mask agonizing grief. The gap between them is no longer just experiential. It's a massive ocean of unresolved hurt. When Marcus shows up at her new office, completely desperate and declaring his love despite his massive failures, Elena delivers an absolute gut punch. She looks at him and says, "Love isn't enough anymore, Marcus." And this brilliantly subverts that fairy tale trope. The idea that love conquers all is proven painfully insufficient here. Trauma and repeated abandonment have built a wall that mere feelings just cannot bridge. Action is required. Which brings us to our final act, the quiet rebellion. Because when two fiercely independent, scarred people shatter things this completely, gluing the pieces back together takes immense, agonizing work. Moving into year 2, Marcus channels his survival into the celebrated gallery exhibit titled Absence, which features photos of shadows exactly where people should be. Then, on the exact 2-year anniversary of their first collision, he stands outside her building in the pouring rain. She finally lets him in, and he proposes. By year 2.5, they have an intimate wedding in Montana under these wide-open skies, and by year 3, they welcome a daughter, Leela, into a beautifully balanced life upstate. But how did they actually get from the shattered glass to here? How did they fix it? Well, Marcus didn't just bring empty words this time. He brought receipts, tangible proof of growth. He maintained his therapy and his sobriety. But most impactfully, on that rainy night, he hands her an envelope. Inside are ultrasound photos that he actually had an artist recreate based merely on a description of the child they lost. He also gives her a stock of letters he wrote to her every single day he was gone. And he makes a vow, not to be perfect, but to stay, to fight for the relationship daily, in the light and in the dark. This proves to Elena and to us that modern romance isn't about finding a flawless partner. It's about finding someone who actively chooses to stay and do the work every single day. And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. As the source text so beautifully puts it, in a world of noise, their love was the quiet rebellion. Choosing to fight for love amidst brutal corporate deadlines, haunting past traumas, and the endless distractions of the modern world, It isn't a fairy tale. It's a gritty, beautiful, imperfect rebellion against the sheer ease of just walking away. So I want to leave you with this question. In your own life, amidst all the noise out there, what are you quietly rebelling for? Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this incredible story. Keep analyzing, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.